Welcome back, everybody. It's been a while since we've touched on these, to be fair. We're back doing the Eighth Doctor Big Finish monthly range. Obviously, we took a bit of a pause with the new series and our little break and everything. Many thanks to everybody that watched our last video. The companion tier list, I'm clearly in the wrong and in the minority when I say I still can't stand Strax, and no one's going to change my opinion on that. I'll just sit there in my own little bubble.
Strax is great.
The Creed of the Kromon. Oh dear.
Yeah. Out of all of them, this is, especially in this series, this was one of the weaker ones.
I couldn't agree more. It's important, isn't it? You can't really skip
No,
it.
God no, it's very important.
It introduces our new companion, our third member of our dynamic duo, which is now a dynamic trio, with Keres, played, I think, very well. I think Keres, as a companion, is so underrated because so many people sort of give him a bit of shit, and it don't really make any sense because, he's so unique in terms of the fact he's from a different universe. He's a bit of a wild card, which you don't really sort of get to until a bit later. But the idea of sort of like having an alien companion, like physically alien, exoskeletons and everything. I think he's got a solid introduction. In terms of like this story, he's the Doctor and Charlie go through the interzone. We also meet the Croaker, who becomes a sort of recurring character as well, not as a companion, but as he's sort of guiding the Doctor. So after Scherzo, which is where we left it last time, the Doctor and Charlie have broken out of the experiment and are now in this sort of like barren landscape, really. And I think, it's a cool set piece when it starts, but then it just goes a bit weird and it's all tonally all over the place. There's a bit of the stuff with Keres which I do find fault with because of his like sort of chameleonic properties. There's a lot of like audio description, or I like to call it chibnall dialogue, where like everything's just being described. Where it's like, oh, your skin has changed color, and it's like, but the thing is with audio, you can't do that without any sort of reaction to it, because otherwise no one's going to know what's happening. That's just a little fault with, I mean, not fault, it's just part and parcel of audio dramas, really. But I think, is there really a need for it when you're in that medium? It's sort of like you kind of write yourself into a corner and have to put in that sort of dodgy dialogue.
Yeah. It's... I don't know what to say with it, to be honest, because it's important to listen to going through this series.
Yeah.
As especially going through into natural history, fear, and everything else after that, which we'll get on to. It is a really good place to, like, it's a good setup, and you get a lot of backstory and a lot of character development for Keres and Charlie as well. And the Doctor's still kind of in that accepting Charlie, not accepting her state of mind from Scherzo as well.
Yeah, see, I thought that's the kind of thing you would expect to have a bit more of a lasting impact, but there's sort of like a couple of hints of it towards the very start of this, and then it's all back to, no, Charlie's my best friend and all that.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, do you not remember what you were saying, like, last week when you were saying, keeps you around because, you keep them reminded of death and all of that, and this whole story, I mean, plot-wise, it's very Doctor Who by numbers. The Doctor and Charlie arrive in this landscape, they meet people who have been oppressed by these horrible aliens called the Kromon, and it's their job to sort it all out. It goes a bit too far with the sort of ideas of it, and it's totally all over the place, because it's very much like, ha ha ha, sci-fi bureaucracy, lol, oh, we're going to turn your companion into a big horrible slug thing and put, like, and it's very weird, and it's very Philip Morris. Like, Philip Morris, who wrote this, wrote Vengeance on Varus, which we've reviewed, and also wrote Mind Warp. And it's a lot of experimenting on people and doing weird things like brain transplants, and he turns Perry into a bird, and, Charlie gets sort of turned into a bit of a slug, and the only things that actually, these sort of, like, forced biological changes only ever happen to the female characters, and it just comes across as a bit icky.
Yeah.
It's a bit like when you sort of break it down and you think about it. I mean, because it's quite easy to sort of, I find it quite easy to tune out of this one. But when I sit down and focus with them, like this in front of me so I can take notes, you sort of go, and it's like the aliens get a bit of a kick out of it as well. It is almost like they are getting off on it, and it just kind of comes a bit like, ooh, no, I don't like that. Because you can be dark and grim without being gross.
Yeah. It's like when they're torturing Keres on the wheel, like having him just go in and out with the water for ages. You can tell they're really just enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really not pleasant.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's brutal and nasty, but Doctor Who can do brutal and nasty without it being all like fetishy and a bit grim.
Yeah.
And that's how this just comes across. It's just a bit, yeah. And like even McGann sounds bored in this, which is like, you know, even with some of the earlier stories that we talked about that we're not so fussed on, never ever faulted McGann, but he just sounds like he's just doing this, like he's just sailing through this. He's like, yeah, blah blah blah, which is so strange. And the voice of the Kromon sounds like really comedic.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like, oh, we are aliens, Doctor. Ooh. And it's like, we're going to torture your companion and like waterboard your other new friend because we're weird, kinky aliens. Oh. No, not for me. Not for me. The Croaker's a good
I'm never
addition.
getting that out of my head, thank you.
You're welcome. You're never going to sleep again.
No, I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight because of that, specifically.
What can I say? I try to do my best. The Croaker, though. The Croaker. I am a fan of the Croaker. Stephen Perring back from his... Oh, actually, can you get, without looking at the notes, do you know where you know Stephen Perring, who plays the Croaker, from? Sorry, my arm's getting tired.
No.
It's Grail from Seasons of Fear.
Oh.
It's the same voice actor. Because it's Big Finish back in the old days where people would just come in and out and do various different things over the years. It's sort of almost like a sort of repertory kind of thing in a way.
That's a good story as well.
Shame that the same can't be said about this one.
No.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I will listen to it if I'm doing a full rewatch. I never pick this one out because it's just a bit. It just makes me feel a bit ill. I want to go and have a shower after something this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. But I just like, I don't mind body horror and stuff, but when it's just sort of like fetishized a bit,
Yeah.
you kind of just go a bit. No, I feel like I'm just going into someone's mind a little bit too much here.
Yeah, they're writing one-handed a bit.
Yeah, and like, it's not like he hasn't got form because it's the guy that wrote Vengeance on Varos and Mind Warp, where similar things happen.
Yeah.
And it's, if this was like a one-off or a new writer or something, I wouldn't think too much about it because my brain can't help going, there's that bit in Vengeance on Varos where Perry gets turned into a bird for no reason, and then it never gets mentioned again.
No. Right, one episode I will be continuing to pick out on a regular basis is the natural history of fear.
If you want to know why Tom put so much effort into pronouncing that properly, all I'm saying is become a channel member, watch the extended version. That's all I can say. When we eventually sort that out.
Yeah. No, this episode was brilliant. Absolute chef's kiss.
Mwah. I love the natural history of fear. It's so like not Doctor Who, but it's exactly Doctor Who because it's a whole, it's a Doctor companion like story, but not actor like. They're all playing different roles, and then there's a twist is that they're not all different roles. They're being sort of brain conditioned into fitting these jobs, and it's like it's Doctor Who does 1984, like even down to the language of like you're a prole and the forbidden questions and stuff like that, and it's a proper totalitarian regime that's all focused on like productivity and like loving the state and everything. It's 1985 boiled up and then just scooped into Doctor Who, and 1984 is like a fantastic book. It's a classic for a reason. It's still quite relevant in some places, and it does the way that the characters work in this and the actors can just assimilate into these different roles. I think really shows how good the range of those three are. Paul McGann, India Fisher, and Conrad Westmas, like just so well. And it's not just the 1984 aspect. It's such a clever look of the idea of Doctor Who as a whole, because within this regime, everyone's all about productivity and it's all very bureaucratic, but not like the last story was. It works, and it's Doctor Who is basically the Doctor's adventures are being used as like escapism for people. As a reward, going, oh, you've done well. Well, here's like, you get to watch an hour of telly now, and it's Doctor Who, and that's how my life works.
Yeah,
I go to work, I work hard, and then at the end of the day, it's like, right, I can put the telly on now, and you don't think about that until afterwards. You go, oh God.
It's very relatable to current life as well.
Yeah,
like, it is really just brilliant. All the stuff with like being oppressed for asking questions. All the stuff going on with Charlie as well, going through, you realise we learn that she's integral to a revolution, but she doesn't know about it because she's been, what is it?
Oh, I can't remember the word they use.
No, me. I was literally listening to it in the car. She had her memories changed.
It's really going to bug me, that.
Yeah, and me. Revision.
That's the one.
That's the one. That's no wonder I hate. No wonder I couldn't find it. I hate that. She has her memory revised quite a lot throughout this, so she forgets a lot of stuff. But you see little bits just trickling throughout the story. Same with the Doctor. You get that bit where Charlie and Doctor's the editor and the nurse as she is at the time.
Yeah, or at least the actors that
yeah.
are playing them are. It's not the Doctor and
And
Charlie.
the Doctor's there. You see the little bit of the Doctor coming through saying, "Don't let me fall." You see little bits coming through from their time before they came to Light City, and past revisions of their memory as well, just leaking through into the next one. It's really good fun.
It's so layered because this one is like, it's not a particularly easy one to get. You've really got to sit down and like, this isn't one you can do when you're sort of pottering about the house doing like whatever. You've really got to sit down, because when I first listened to this, I was like, well, I don't really get it. I get it's trying to do 1984, but I'm not, I was just being a bit of a moody prick at the time. Whereas now, I think this is like one of the best Doctor Who stories in any medium. But the thing is, it's not even Doctor Who. It's like they've boiled down what makes Doctor Who, stripped that away, and whatever's left, they've then turned into a program, because it's like, it even plays with the idea that the Doctor is like this intangible concept, and anyone with those memories or skills, or even the sort of like ambition or like the same moral code can be the Doctor, which is such a cool thing when you look at like the sort of the idea of Doctor Who as a a franchise and stuff. So many kids look up to, and I certainly did, and a lot of the time still do sort of look at the Doctor's way of doing things, of going, use your brain, peaceful options, that kind of thing. Don't just like run into things and start scrapping and stuff like that. And it's just so very, very clever. And the twist at the end, right? There's always a twist. There's always. We're not going to spoil it, but it makes so much sense when you hear it. You go, oh, of course. But it's just, I don't. If you haven't heard this, I think it's like $2.99 from Big Finish. It doesn't even. Yes, I know it fits into this wider arc, but it's probably like the least involved with the Divergence like series. All you need to know: the Doctor, Charlie, and Kerrys are the TARDIS team. They're in a different universe, but this is Doctor Light. It's just a cast. So maybe listen to like Creed Kromon just so you know what the voices sound like or whatever. But I go and pick this one up because it's great. It's dark, it's grisly, but without being like kinky. It's just grim, but it works tonally within the story. And the sound design on it, for an audio play made by a tiny company that's like 20 years old, it sounds really like high tech. The voice of Light City and everything, and which is basically like Big Brother. It's just solid. One of my favourites, probably, tied with Shirt Sewing Chimes of Midnight so far in terms of. And when we get to the end of this run, we'll do a tier list, because we love a tier list.
Yeah, we do.
And I think that would be really just a fun way of just explaining how much I love this. There's a couple of issues. I think it sort of leans a little bit too much into the revisions of the characters a bit. So sometimes you do sort of go, right, hang on, who's playing who now? Is she the nurse or is she the... No, she's... Right. So you do, like I said, you do really have to pay attention to it to really get it. And I think it's a bit of a weird one to put this here, because this would have been Kerrys' first trip, not in the TARDIS, but the first adventure he has with the Doctor and Charlie. And you don't get a lot of Kerrys. You get a lot of Colin Westmouse, who's great, but as a character, Kerry's sort of like, he doesn't really make much of an impact in this, because, and especially all like the sort of the conscience that this is the character that he plays, you don't really get that like link, like you said with the Doctor and Charlie. You sort of get that bit trickling out, but you don't know Kerry's well enough yet.
Yeah.
But then, on a re-listen after you've listened to more of his stuff, you do spot it.
You do, because after Charlie's been taken in for her assessment, for her test, and she's just left, and the conscience comes out, and she's does some questionable things with Charlie's character in this one.
Yeah. It's not an easy listen, this one either.
No, but you see, it's like, you do see, I've always loved you, Charlie, and all that stuff coming through. You hear him say that as the conscience. So something is there for him to link him to Charlie. Maybe not the Doctor. But then he does go on to say, I was like, we were going to use you and put the Doctor's thoughts into your head.
Yeah. I think, the stuff like that, there is obviously elements to it there. I think, and you are right. It's just that because we've only had Kerrys for one story before this, you don't get quite as much. Like, on a re-listen, you pick up on so much more after, you listen to the rest of Kerrys' stories and everything. There are, so especially the more development that he gets as well, the more you pick up there. It is seeded in here. It's just, I'm talking about just the sort of admin of putting this one bang after his introduction. You sort of
Yeah.
go, but I don't really get it. It's very, if I were to link it to a TV series, think of like a TV series episode, think of Once Upon a Time from Flux, where you've got the characters playing different characters, you know, and it's sort of, you get the trickles of them coming through and whatever. Whereas this is more like personality coming through, not just sort of like flickering images and stuff. It's that sort of like weird notion.
Yeah.
I love it. I could wax lyrical about this one. I really could.
Yeah.
It's a really solid one.
It's definitely been my favourite so far.
Out of everything, or out of the series?
Out of this series.
Yeah.
Chimes at Midnight, still very high for me for overall. I think I'm going to need to wait until you get to the end of this series and then make a decision.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you.
Never gets old. If someone could supercut that for
I
me,
wish I didn't. Anyway,
Speaking of things that got old quickly, the Twilight Kingdom. Okie dokie.
yeah.
This is the thing. I think, you know, a lot of people write the Divergent universe off, but I think it's unfair because when it's good, it's really, really good. But there are times where it just meanders along aimlessly. I mean, the Twilight Kingdom, it's got some great world building, and it really sort of looks at developing this new TARDIS team into a trio rather than just the Doctor and Charlie plus Keres. It's becoming that they're more of like the relationships get developed a bit more. And the fact that they don't know Keres very well yet does play into that. You know, it's not just a case of, oh, we're still getting to know this guy. That has a bit of an element in the story. But this is your usual run-of-the-mill of, well, for the first 3 episodes, it's your usual, this man is a leader of a very extreme force. We must stop him, and we all have a run-around, and blah, 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 and we'll all trust each other. It's like just nauseating, the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 then goes mad and just throws all these crazy ideas at the wall. And this, like, I won't spoil it for you, even if it is, you know, the twist is on the cover, but I won't spoil it for you. I think Michael Keating, famous for playing Villarestal in Blake 7, is does a great job of playing Koth. He makes him quite sinister, quite creepy. He's a bit leery in a way, almost.
Yeah.
He's sort of going, yeah, go away. I think if they'd have just expanded on the weird stuff in this, it would have raised the bar, but they leave all of the weird stuff until episode 4, so you get 3 episodes of just like, sort of literally just walking around caves.
It's just filler, yeah.
It's filler. I think they've come up with this really cool idea, and they realised that there's not enough to really expand that across the whole story. So they go, well, we'll leave that till the end, and we'll just have people suffer, you know, an hour and a half of nonsense.
Then I think they could have redone this slightly so they had first episode be set up, start showing the weird crap in episode 2, have your filler as episode 3, and then go on to do the last half hour.
Yeah, and I think
it would have worked so much better just to have that spacing out just a bit.
Yeah, I think the spacing out is definitely something that would have helped because, yeah, you get all the weird stuff in episode 4, and that's by far the strongest part. It's just like you sort of get it, and then you go, oh, we've solved it now. It's all, yeah, never mind, it's done now. And you go, wait, hang on, but why were we knobbing around in caves when we could have been doing this, like, at the very least in episode 3?
Do you know what it is? Very much like season 1 now.
Oh, yeah.
Last season, yeah, where they just have so much going on at the beginning, but it's not really integral to it, and then you get to your last 5-10 minutes and suddenly everything's being done at once and you're just really getting to enjoy the story, and then credits.
Yeah, pacing's just not...
Just off. Yeah, on this one. But I get the feeling with this, from what I've listened to so far, that this series is very hit and miss with the episodes. As you said, when it's good, it's great. But you do get these sort of stories where it does bring it down.
Yeah, for me, the Divergent universe has got one story that is kind of mid. They're either really good or pretty good, or they're just like, oh, what am I doing here? And like this first section goes, Scherzo, Creeds of the Kromon, Natural History of Fear, Twilight Kingdom, Faith Stealer, which we'll move on to now, because I think Faith Stealer is fantastic. I love Faith Stealer. It's not one that I think, it's not as good as the other, like Natural History of Fear, but I just find it really fun. And I think when you have quite a dark arc for the Doctor and he's going through all the stuff of being cut off from his normal universe, his sense of time is gone, you know, which I think they don't play into enough, but we'll get to that in a minute. You know, it's like the lightheartedness of this story. And like, don't get me wrong, it's not an out-and-out comedy. It's sort of like The Romans is a comedy, but it's still got some dark elements in it. It's like, this is the Eighth Doctor's The Romans. It's funny, like laugh out loud funny at points, but then it's still got that sort of menace and stuff you'd expect from Doctor Who. It's not just going out and out comedy for a story. And it really puts a bit of a fucking spark up McGann's arse, because like he is having fun as the Doctor for what feels like the first time in ages. Because again, not so much Natural History of Fear, but he's not really playing the Doctor in it that much. You know, in the Twilight Kingdom as well, he's sort of just plodding along. He has some great scenes and some great moments. I think the confrontations with Koth, anything with him in Major Koth work. But the other stuff, he's just going, no, 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 no. Whereas Faith Stealer, it's like he's gone bam, and it's like there's a new lease of life to him, because the TARDIS seem having fun.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the idea of this high concept thing of like, what if all religions ever in the whole like multiverse existed like peacefully at once, and it wasn't like sort of competitions that, you know, like religious competition in the past has been slightly bloody, you know.
Yeah.
You know, just a bit. And it's still ongoing now in parts of the world, #Free Palestine, you know. But with this, it sort of goes, well, what if it was fine? And what if everyone was like, yeah, peacefully, and there was just sort of like healthy corporate competition, you know, like how different brands compete with each other. It's that sort of like sort of deconstruction of religion. And it's not like anti-religion, it's not pro-religion. It's going, isn't the idea of religion just kind of like fascinating, sort of like untapped potential for a story like this? And the writer of this, Graham Duff, wrote this like completely underrated sitcom on the radio that no one's ever heard of before, called Nebulous, and this feels very Nebulous, because Nebulous is like a sci-fi spoof comedy where it takes different things and will put a bit of a funny twist on them. And it's, yeah, this is straight out of Nebulous. It's really, really funny. You know, I think there's, you know, they meet all these different religions. There's one where they the Church of Serendipity, where they all worship happy accidents and worship the god Whoops. And, you know, they're having this conversation, sort of doing the investigating around like why this one religion that sort of worships this miracle substance is growing much faster than the others. And they're like, not that it's a problem, but it is a bit strange. And they're sort of looking into it, and Kerry's gets involved in it. Yeah. So the Doctor and Charlie are investigating, and they're sort of like banging their heads on doors and stuff, and like knocking people off ladders and things. And it is something like that, almost like a Charlie Chaplin film. Yeah. For a couple of scenes. And even on audio, that works much better than it has any right to.
Yeah, it's fun as well, because you still got that sort of major corporation trying to control all the growth of each religion as well. Yeah, and it's just trying to balance it out, so there's no one's getting better than everyone. But then you do get with Kerry's as well. He finds himself into that one that's just a little bit too culty.
I like the development as well of Kerry's in this, because it's the first time he really gets, I mean, he gets a bit last story to be fair, but this is the first time he really sort of touches on the trauma of what happened to his partner, Lyda. You know, and it doesn't feel out of place. It sort of almost feels a bit like a delayed trauma thing, where he's been so distracted with going from interzone to, because they've been travelling through this thing called the interzone. You know, he hasn't really had time to sit down and process it. And you get more hints that I'm not going to spoil about Kerry's backstory. But there's more hints there that he's not quite the sort of peaceful, loving monk that you might think he is. You know, but I think having someone who's a monk, you know, a space monk in a story all about religions and everything, and him, like, sort of, he's the one, of course, that is going to latch onto this religion, because he's the one that's got all this pain and suffering, and he's a very spiritual person, very religious. Of course, he's going to go that way into things. You know, it's within the character, and it, you know, as this space monk, and it's it almost as well, it plays on the Divergent Universe stuff as well, and it sort of goes, you know, this whole thing about being in a completely different universe that we keep teasing, and we don't really play into it that much, because you could take, there's nothing that stops Kree of the Kromon and Natural History of Fear, not so much that one, Kree of the Kromon and Twilight Kingdom, they could exist in the Prime, the Universe 1. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, there's not really, doesn't feel too weird.
No, it just feels like Doctor and Charlie have gone to another planet. They're just exploring, sort of thing. Yeah. And whereas this, and especially Natural History of Fear, it seems like you couldn't do that in normal world, because for one, while the Time Lords would have stomped out Natural History of Fear if that was happening in the normal world. They would have got involved on that one, I feel. This one as well, I feel they'd probably be recruiting. You'd probably see Time Lords there recruiting for their religion.
Probably.
So these two feel very special in the sense that they couldn't happen in the normal universe.
Yeah,
in
and
a
I think
sense.
that you need, and the Divergent universe was supposed to go on a lot longer than it did for reasons I'll talk about next time, little behind the scenes facts for you. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think the ending's a little bit rushed.
Yeah.
It does sort of go, oh, was that? It's all
They
sort of wrapped up in a nice bow, and it's
they
like,
get quite a few chords going, and then it's just like, oh Christ, we've got to wrap these up now.
yeah. But overall, I think it's a very entertaining story, and it's a sort of it is needed. I think to put this one here after having Scherzo, then Creed the Kromon, then Natural History Fear, then Twilight Kingdom. And you go, oh, finally,
Yeah.
we can have a laugh for a bit now.
Yeah, we can have some fun, and it's still a really good story as well.
Yeah.
Like it's not falling to that bad end of the Divergent universe.
Yeah.
It's solid. It will stand. Again, I think it'll be one I'll go back to quite a bit.
Yeah, I think overall it's a good foundation. And when, like I said, when the Divergent universe hits, and you get stuff like Natural History Fear, when you get stuff like Scherzo, Faith Stealer,
God, it works.
yeah, it's great. But you do have to sort of suffer, and I think a lot of it could have been better sort of planned out and released. But that's what we think. We'll be back in a fortnight's time. Maybe not with some big finish, maybe something different. But we will obviously be carrying on with this as we head into the sort of the final stretch, really, of the Divergent universe, and then sort of final stretch of this era of the Eighth Doctor as a whole. So if you enjoyed that, hit the bell. Go and look at our other McGann videos. This is your bit. I don't know how to do this bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be a video somewhere for you to go and have a look at.
It's making more work for me now.
Well, they're on the page. Just go and have a look. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. If you like the content, hit the bell so you stay notified when we do upload. And don't forget to like and comment on this video. Let us know your thoughts on the Divergent universe as a whole, and these 4 stories as well. If you've got a favourite, let us know.
And we'll see you in a fortnight.
Yes.
Oh, that was terrible. Thank you.